Hey guys, Jason here with a different kind of Duel Masters video. Now, as you know, we do a lot of planning when we make videos, so what we eventually upload is very much, in our minds, a finished product, at least at the time. And while that's all fine and good, I thought it would be fun to contrast that in a video series which takes a more candid approach. The purpose of this video is to let you in on some of our ongoing projects and inspire confidence that deck profiles are on the way. Before we get started, I also need to announce that we recently shifted from a personal YouTube account to a brand account. The TLDR version is that it makes granting access to other users easier, which will help a lot as we try to grow the channel. An unfortunate side effect is that it deletes all of our old replies to people's comments, and sadly this is something we couldn't avoid, but that's just how it is. Now, getting into the video, as you can see here, we have what looks to be an abomination. But no, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of the cards. Andrew has most of the cards, so I've just had to make do with proxies. But as you can see here, it's kind of like a nature, what am I saying? A light water darkness control-ish, beatdown-ish kind of deck. So basically, this is supposed to be a Marinomancer deck. It's my latest concept on Marinomancer. I was inspired by Sasabo's early OCG lists and the Aquan lists we see on Duel Masters plays. I think they were a lot more interesting than the garden variety Marino controls that we have grown accustomed to. And so I thought it would be cool to have that aggressive spin on the deck. Now, the Soul Giles are obviously Sarius's. This is Korean, but I'm not sure if I want this to be Emerald or Aquan. I'm still messing around with both. Tajamal Streams. This is Cranium Clamp. Lucky Ball is Marinomancer, even though now that I think about it, what if we just add in some early aggression, break shields, draw cards with this guy? But no, right now it's centered around Marinomancer. And then this is just a third Crazed Valkyrie. At the moment, it has been underperforming, unfortunately. I think the deck is very fragile. There's a lot that can go wrong, and a lot of work needs to be put into it. Andrew and I were testing this the other day, and he was like, why did our old Merino deck work better? Maybe we should make this just, let's just return to the roots and make it more control-y. And I was like, no, Andrew, don't do it. But yeah, we'll see. More testing has to be done. There's a third Petrova. A lot of the Merino control lists that we see tend to run Bloom Urkus Flare Guardian. I am personally not a big fan of that card. I thought it was really good on paper, but then in practice, it's just like almost like a worse Bolmedius in my opinion. So I thought Petrova was cooler, especially since if you have initiates out already, you can just drop Petrova and then you can kill something. Like you don't have to wait for Bloom to kill something. And then, even though Bloom can use your opponent's shield triggers, so in a way it's kind of like Bolmedius, well guess what? Petrova also gets to avoid shield triggers. And when you summon Petrova, it's not just food for Corile or Terrapit or something like that. So yeah, I am a big fan of Petrova, and I really want to make this concept work because Marinomancer is one of my favorite cards. So that's what we're working on right now. So unfortunately, it's not working out too well, but hopefully we will have something for you soon. Now I'm just going to whip out another one of the decks that I've been working on. And that deck is Fire Nature Rush. So the main reason I whipped this deck together is because the cards were, on the most part, pretty easy to get. Now, Marine Flower and Fairy Life are not supposed to be Marine Flower and Fairy Life. Marine Flower is supposed to be Comet Missile. This was just the only 1 mana card I had, which I also had 4 copies of. And then Fairy Life is supposed to be Volcanic Arrows, because it's 2 mana shield trigger. That's how it works, right? Now, the thing with this deck, though, is, I know it's a good deck and all that, strong archetype, but I feel like all Fire Nature Rush lists are pretty much the same, so I don't see the point in doing a deck profile for something that already exists on YouTube. I've been hoping to discover some sort of innovation or some sort of twist on the deck that makes it unique, but also without compromising its power. Now, everything is supposed to be a 4-of here, so just ignore these. These are just proxies for these guys. And yeah, maybe the turn that I could take is we could do a budget deck profile for this. Maybe, I don't know if this guy's is considered hard to get, Hardy Cap and Polygon, because he was released in the later sets, but then he's only a common, so I don't quite know. But maybe like we dump him for Bark Whip, and then we replace Gonta for Torcon or something like that, and maybe it won't be too bad. But yeah, that's just what we have right now. Andrew and I were talking about another sort of aggressive list. It would be slightly slower, but it would feature Pincer Scarab and perhaps Fairy Life as well. So I think what he had envisioned is you you have a bit of mana ramp, so maybe use like Fairy Life and Poisonous Mushroom, and then you use this to get cards out of mana, and then you just rush out a big Pincer Scarab. So maybe that could be good. Not sure if that would benefit from water. There were some lists like that on Duel Masters plays running around for a while, and I think they could also make good use of Lucky Ball, who is a card that I find very interesting, but that remains to be seen. Now, whether the Pincer Scarab deck and this deck can coexist, or this deck sort of evolves into the Pincer Scarab deck, who knows? But that's what we have for Fire Nature Rush. Now, there is one more deck that I'm going to show you guys, and I'll be back in just a minute. And the last list we have is Wise Starnoid, Avatar of Hope. I'm a big fan of this card. I think the artwork is fantastic, and I think the fact that he's Lightbringer and Cyberlord just makes him very attractive to play. Quite embarrassing up until recently. I thought this guy costed 4 mana, and I was like, man, this guy's insane. You can whip him out so early. But no, he actually costs 5, which I think makes him a lot worse, but maybe, hopefully not to the point that he's unplayable. As you can see here, this is a very rough list with proxies. This is Aquahulkus, just an alternate art though. And I am, in fact, not playing Time Scout. This is supposed to be Emerald. I just didn't have any Emeralds lying around. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of notable omissions at the moment. I just threw 40 cards together, which I thought made sense, and then I realized there are no Holy Oz, there are no Energy Streams, and no Illusionary Merfolk, my boy. So, yeah, there's a lot of fine-tuning that needs to be done with the deck. Like Fire Nature Rush, though, I feel like a lot of Wise Starnoid lists are going to be very similar. In a way, it's almost like a deck that builds itself, but each deck might have like 4 to 8 card variances among each other. But, I guess that's just the way it goes sometimes. Now, the thing with Wise Starnoid, though, and I was talking to Doug about this a couple weeks ago, and he said, Jason, I'm not too sold on Wise Starnoid, because what you're basically saying is that you summon him and then you say, okay, deal with me. And then when your opponent does deal with him, it's not difficult. It's not difficult for them to out-resource you. I guess maybe this is an inherent problem of living in an environment where control decks are highly prominent. We kind of think of a deck's viability in terms of its ability to deal with control, because maybe this deck is good at dealing with slower decks like rush or mid-range. Like Wise Starnoid can just trample over the twin cannons. He gets you shields, you have blockers, so the rush decks can't straight up kill you. But yeah, anyway, the point that he was trying to make was that Wise Starnoid a lot of the times felt more like a plot device than a win condition. He's summoning him is something that moves the game along, but is he straight up winning you the game? I don't know. It's something to think about. At first, I wasn't too happy with that comment because I was like, why are you hating on my boy? But then I thought about it some more, and I think he made sense. So I think if we were to eventually do a serious attempt at a Wise Starnoid deck, I think a lot would need to change. I think the general, mid-range rush out Wise Starnoid approach would probably need to be adjusted. There's probably some spice that we would need to throw in to make it a better deck, probably. And yeah, kind of rambling here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think Wise Starnoid as a concept in its current form is not really a super duper strong deck, and I think if we want to push the concept further, there are a lot of changes we need to make, which is great in the sense that our list will be different, but can it be better? I guess that's what I'm desperately hoping for. Yeah, that's what I have on Wise Starnoid at the moment. And the last thing I'm going to show you guys this video is the Excel Andrew and I have been working on. It is a very beautiful spreadsheet, if I do say so myself. So what we did was we made a list of all of our existing decks, and then we are using this spreadsheet as a means to track their progress. So as you can see here, the reconceptualization of Mono Water, Neo Beastfolk Mafia, Wave Strikers, and Hydrus is going pretty well. We're revamping pretty much everything, and we're also hoping to give budget versions for most, if not all, of the decks. But yeah, whether or not it's possible remains to be seen. Some Mono Water and Neo Beast Folk Mafia, very much inspired by Duel Masters plays. Wave Strikers, not so much, but it is absolutely filthy. I think there's a... Wave Strikers has made a very strong case for Bidoof, best deck in format, so maybe it'll end up being our best deck. Who knows? Hydras, Hydras is always solid. The only real questions we're asking ourselves right now is how many copies of Windmill Mutant should we play? And yeah. Now, if you scroll down a little bit here, these are some of the concepts that we are interested in. So we don't have full-fledged decks for these, and nor have we ever had in the past, but it's something that we are hoping to do. So not only are we revamping our current decks, but we're also hoping to deliver something new. So why Starnoid? Just talked about that. Warlord Elzonius. This guy is such a strong card, honestly. And Gladiators are pretty decent in their own right, too. So I think it's going to make for a very strong deck once we finally perfect the list. FDF focused Fighter Dual Fang, so unfortunately he got the boot from Neo Beast Folk Mafia, but he's an awesome card, so we still want to give him his own deck and a place to shine. Force of Control is pretty interesting, just because, running Water, Nature, Fire, and Darkness just gives you a lot of options. So I think Force of Control is a great vehicle for getting funky concepts off the ground. So hopefully the Force of Control deck we eventually deliver will be rich in the spice department. Merfolk focused. So Illusionary Merfolk is... I have woken up, and Illusionary Merfolk is perhaps not as strong a card as I thought it was. To be honest, I've even considered cutting him from our Rub Control deck, which I titled Merfolk Control, so it's kind of sad. But, I just want to make some strong decks, right? So yeah, in case he gets the boot from here, we want to make sure he has a deck focused around him, because, who doesn't love dropping a semi-big body and drawing 3 cards? Yeah. Now, Lost Soul Beat. Now, the whole idea behind this deck is to include some mana ramp and then play very aggressively, and then by the time you hit turn 5 or 6, you just whack your opponent with a big fat Lost Soul. So it essentially negates all of the card advantage that you gave them from breaking early. At least that's the idea. I feel like this is going to be a very fun deck to play if we can get a functional list for it. Guardians Petrova. I think Guardians are a pretty solid race, and outside of the outlier, really, it's kind of a shame that we don't have any Guardian-focused decks, so maybe we could come up with one. The only problem here is that we are messing around with Petrova in a couple of our lists up here, so we don't want the game to turn into Petrova Masters, so I can see this deck falling in the priority list. Now, Gajira Butte is a very cool card. 6 mana. When you drop him, you burn one of your opponent's shields. And I've been thinking about making a Gajira Butte deck for a while. Now, I haven't actually done any draft lists, but I think it's going to be good fun when we eventually come up with one. Now, I also realized that Trox, General of Destruction, might be a pretty good addition here. Trox curves off Gajira Butte, and if your opponent doesn't get rid of Gajira Butte, which I honestly don't think, why would he, you can pull off Trox's effect, which could be very strong, because then you disrupt your opponent by discarding at least 1 card, and then you have this big body on the field, right? So, maybe I'm onto something there. Who knows? But yeah, Jason talking about a viable Demon Command deck. What is happening? Are we living in a bizarro world? We may very well be. And then, of course, Pincer Scarab and Fire Nature Rush, which I just talked about earlier in the video. So yeah, that wraps up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more videos like this, please do let me know. And as always, stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.